we will go ahead and get started. I don't have any props planned for today. If you like to have blocks for things, go ahead and grab a block or blocks when you do low lunge stuff, because we will move around in low lunge. So you can always have a blanket to pad your knees too. That can be helpful. And we will actually start laying on our backs. So feel free to get yourself comfortable laying on your back. I'm just going to read the scripture to start. Life is full of ups and downs, and we just have lessons that we need to learn. And last week was a crazy week for me, and one scripture that just kept coming to mind was Isaiah 61 verses 1 through 3. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn, to point unto them that mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. Right, and these are the scriptures that Jesus read when he was announcing who he was, that he really was the Messiah, that he was the one who had been anointed. But what's been helpful for me is knowing that it's Christ that transforms things. He's the one that gives beauty for ashes. And the comfort comes from relying on him. And moving with that has been really helpful for me this past week. So as we move today, it's going to be a really kind of fluid, flowing practice. Just, I invite you to kind of feel that ability of Christ to transform things. We will start on our backs. And let's see. I'm going to lay this way. So your right leg is probably facing the camera. Just let your knees be comfortably bent, your feet flat on the floor. Let your hands rest maybe on your lower belly or just along your sides so you can kind of get into your breath. And let your hand expand, and let your breath expand into your hands if they're on your belly. And let your exhale be extra long. Just let yourself kind of settle here. Just connecting with your breath, and then we'll find a little bit of movement, just some pelvic rocks, so pushing your lower back into the floor, lifting your tailbone up, and then tipping your tailbone toward the floor and exaggerating that curve of your lower back. And just go back and forth there, connecting that movement with your breath and really feeling the deep layers of your belly. Move your pelvis. And then find a neutral place and just play with tipping your right hip down, kind of pushing into your left heel, and then switching, push into your right heel and let your left hip tip down. And just rock on your sacrum from side to side. And feel the involvement of your glutes to make that happen. Just rocking side to side, and then we'll make it into circles. So you can tip to the right, really pushing into your left heel, and then glue your lower back vertebrae to the floor and lift your pubic bone into a tilt, and then push into your right heel and tilt over to your left, and then tip your pubic bone toward the floor and exaggerate your lower back curve. Push into your left heel and your right hip point drops. Push down into your lower back, over into your left, so push into your right heel to drop your left hip down. So go in that circle 1 or 2 times, just really articulating through your pelvis and feeling those deep belly and glute muscles working. And then you can switch directions. We always like to start with this awareness of our deep core. So that's where we're originating all of our movement from. After you feel like you've kind of evened yourself out with your circles, just find a neutral spine. Let your hands go along your sides now, and keep your heels on the floor and just drag them forward. Just push your legs towards straight, but your heels will stay on the floor until you come long. And then drag your heels back in and feel what happens with your belly. Just let your heels drag on the floor and then push your legs long, kind of skid down your sticky mat, but you can take weight out of your heels, but still keep them connected with the floor, just dragging them in and pushing them out. Now, notice what's happening in your belly. If it wants to squeeze and peek up, see if you can flatten it out. You can even keep your hands there. Right. We want to use the deepest muscles. Don't try to use your rectus abdominis, your superficial belly muscles, but see if you can use deep down to pull those heels in towards your bum and then slide them out. Next time your legs get out, just reach your arms overhead and let yourself be long. And then drag your heels in, bend your knees, and then just sweep your arms toward your hips, just falling over like a rainbow. And then let your knees fall out to the sides. So just come onto the pinky toe edges of your feet. And then swim your arms out like a snow angel and up overhead as you have your knees wide and bring your legs down towards straight. So it's kind of like we're doing elementary backstroke on the floor. So you'll drag your heels in, sweep your arms toward your hips, let your knees go wide, and then sweep your arms wide back overhead as your legs go straight. And just do that 2 or 3 more times. And really feel, right, that coming together as you bring your hands towards your hips and your knees in, right? You're gonna feel that engagement through the front of your body. Try to keep your lower ribs down on the floor the whole time. And then we'll switch directions. So now you're long, arms overhead, legs long, and externally rotate your hips so your toes turn out. Then you can bend your knees like frog legs, widen your arms, circle them down, and then bring your feet flat on the floor, knees up. Lift your hips in just a little baby bridge, lower your hips down, and then slide your feet away and reach your arms overhead. And we'll do this direction a few times. So knees wide as you frog leg, pull your heels towards your bum, and then knees toward the ceiling, feet flat on the floor to lift into a little bridge. And then push your heels away from you, slide those straight legs as your arms come overhead. Is that confusing? Does it make sense? So your heels will come in, you'll lift into your bridge. But we're really feeling that connection of our periphery, so of our limbs to the core, right? And moving from that center. Let's just do one more like that. So your feet turn out, bring your frog legs up, heels towards your bum, and then plant your feet. Lift your hips. And then lower your hips down, and you can just lift your knees up off the floor, lift your feet up off the floor, and reach your arms up. So now we're kind of like a dead bug. And drop your right arm and right leg toward the camera, and then just roll over onto your right side. And then we'll roll to the other. Just keep your head grounded. So just lead with that left arm and leg until Your right arm and leg have to follow, and just roll over onto your left side. Just going back and forth here. And this feels good to me. It feels like a good massage. And I really like rolling my head here. So let this feel nurturing, even though you might look like a silly baby. Just really let yourself massage your back, your shoulders, the back of your pelvis and your head. And next time we roll to the right, you can prop yourself up on that right arm and lengthen your left leg out. And then find a side bend. And then you'll take your right arm and just slide it back down on the floor and come back into your little dead bug. And we'll do it to the other side. So you'll roll to the left, lengthen out your right leg, push into this left arm, and then you can find a little side bend over to your right. And then just slide down on that left arm to come back onto your back. Just go at your own pace here. Just kind of rolling around, and your side bend does not have to be big. Your leg doesn't even have to be straight on the floor. We're just really letting this be kind of fluid and nurturing. And your core is just working reflexively. That's where you're originating that movement from. And next time you come up with this left leg out, and you find that side bend over to your left, plant your hands behind you, bend both knees, and we'll just push ourselves up into a reverse table, and then lower your hips down. I'm just going to kind of keep turning myself so I'm parallel with my mat. And just do this a few times. So you're just kind of playing with your wrists. You reset your hands so you can find a comfortable position where you feel supported and find that opening in your shoulders. I'll just do that one more time there. And then we'll just roll right over onto our mats and find ourselves in table on hands and knees. From here, we'll do some cat and cow, but I want it to be slow, and I want you to really initiate this from your tailbone. So it'll start from your tailbone. So tuck your tailbone under and feel that deep, deep engagement in your belly. And then one vertebrae at a time, see if you can flex through your lower back, and then your mid back, and then your upper back, and then chin to chest. And once you get pushing here and your whole spine is in flexion, we'll unfurl starting with your tailbone. So just extend through your tailbone and your pelvis, and then your lower back vertebrae, and then your mid back vertebrae, and then your thoracic vertebrae, and last your neck looks forward. Okay, so we're moving slowly, leading with your tailbone. Now you can go at your own pace, but see if you can move all the way into flexion into your cat, and pause there, and then lead with your tailbone to move yourself into extension into your cow. And feel that deep, deep belly. And that your movement radiates out from that place. Let's do one more. And then find a neutral spine. Take your hips towards your heels, but leave your arms where they are. So we're not coming into a really deep child's pose. Plant through your left hand, and we'll just lift the right hand. So just let your thumb face up, and then reach that arm up alongside your ear. And when you can't lead with your thumb anymore, you can internally rotate that arm to circle it back behind you, and the back of your hand will come towards your hip. And then reach it up and back and swim it around. Now try to keep your rib cage stable. And just go back and forth, moving through the range of motion of the shoulder. Now the next time you come forward, you can bend through your elbow and just tap between your shoulder blades, and then lengthen out your arm. And then find that internal rotation. And then bend your elbow and bring the back of your hand maybe between your shoulder blades. And just swim there a couple of times. And then reach that arm and then thread it underneath your left. And you can find a twisted child. You can lift your hips up off your heels, slide yourself so your right shoulder, right side of your face is on the floor. I like to creep that left arm long and then maybe over toward the right. So you get a really long line from that left pinky toe to your left outer hip. Slide your left hand in front of your face. Use your arm strength to come back up to your table. And now take your right leg back. Bend your knee and we'll find our hip cars. So you'll take that knee, keep your pelvis as level as possible, and the knee straight out to the side. And then crunch that knee up towards your armpit and then in towards your chest and then heel toward the ceiling. Go that direction 3 times and try to keep your spine still and your pelvis as still as possible as you're just moving and articulating through that hip socket. And then bring your knee into your chest, knee out to the side, internally rotate heel up to the ceiling. And do that other direction 3 times. Right, and slower is stronger. After your third one, we'll just take their right foot and step it outside your right hand. And you can come onto fingertips or blocks here. Find some circles. And just find some movement here in your low lunge. You have that right foot on the floor. And your hands are inside. So you've kind of got lots of space for your pelvis to move. So your both hands are inside of that right foot. And tuck your back toes, and we'll kind of play here. Push into your right foot to straighten through that leg. And then as you bend through your knee, straighten through your left knee and lift it up off the floor. And then you can bring it down and straighten. And just move through there. You could even, when you bend that back knee, just let it hover above the floor. And just play with bending your front knee, straightening your back knee, bending your back knee, straightening your front knee, any amount, right? And you can be up on blocks here. But feel how this movement is radiating from your core. You have that control as you move, right? And slower is stronger. From here, we'll move into warrior 2. So you'll bend into your right knee and then ground your left heel. And then just cartwheel your way up. Adjust your feet as you need to. So you can bring that right heel in line with your left knee. And then just see that you can move your pelvis here. And just find some movement in your pelvis. Reach your arms out long. And then push into your right foot to straighten that right leg. And then feel like you're pulling your heel up toward your sitting bone to bend it. So really turn on that hamstring on that right leg. And just straighten and bend. And straighten and bend. Straighten and bend. And then you can drop your hands, just look down at that right foot. We'll just come into a wide Tadasana or mountain pose at the top of your mat. So you'll just take your left leg, slide it in and just step forward. And then step your feet about as wide as your mat. Let your toes point out and just kind of sway your hips from side to side shifting weight from heel to heel, and then you can start to bend your knees and just work your way down. We'll work our way down into a squat, but come down with control in a really fluid way. You can rest yourself. Right, this is the first time we've been here, so come up and down a few times. And then come down all the way. Use your hands if you need to. We're going to bring our sitting bones to the floor. Float your legs up. Find a boat pose. Right, and you're moving from that center. Remember, you're moving from the center, and lengthen your legs away from you. And then just start to hover shoulder blades and heels up off the floor. And then lower yourself all the way down. Take your arms overhead. Okay, we're back to our elementary backstroke. So slide your heels toward your bum and just sweep your arms towards your hips. And then let your knees go wide and just circle your arms out and overhead as your legs straighten out. And just do that 2 or 3 more times in that direction. And after you've swum that way a few times, and we'll kind of switch. So let your feet turn out, bend your knees, come up with frog legs as you sweep your arms down. Then flatten your feet up. Hands by your hips, just lift into a little bridge before you push your heels away and reach your arms overhead. And do that 1, 2, or 3 more times. Moving all of your edges from the center. I'm going to do 1 more. I have no idea how many I've done. I'll do 1 more. Once you're lowered down into that bridge, you can lift your arms and legs up so you're in this little dead bug, and then just drop your left arm, left knee to the side, and then roll. Just roll like this a few times, and then we'll add that long leg and side bend. So just ease yourself into it and roll like this little dead bug as long as you want. And when you're ready, you can just lengthen your right leg and push into your left arm, and then reach into your side bend. And then lengthen that left arm on the floor to roll over to the other side. And just let it be fluid and roly-poly, but feel nurturing. Next time you come up with that right leg, just pause there, plant your hands behind you, bend both knees, feet on the floor, and then lift your hips into your reverse table. And then just kind of switch, move yourself as you come up and down in this reverse table, so you come parallel with your mat. And the next time your bum comes to the floor, just roll over onto hands and knees. And this time we'll play with a hip hinge. So if you've got a block, you can even use your block here and bring it onto your sacrum. This is not necessary, but I just want you to think about keeping your block still as you reach your hips towards your heels and then coming up. So keeping that pelvis level and turning on your hamstrings. So you're actively pulling your heels toward your sitting bones to find your hip hinge here. Keep your lower ribs softening in. So you're not flaring them, you're not exaggerating the extension in your spine, right? You've got a neutral spine as you're working on that hinge through your hips. And just hinging right here at the hip crease and using the strength of the backs of your legs to find that. Okay, and then we'll add on. So I'm going to move my block off. So find your hip hinge and now scoop your tailbone under. So you're flexing through your spine and roll yourself back up to your table. Find your neutral spine and then hip hinge back, hips towards your heels. Tuck your tailbone under and then round yourself up. Okay, and feel that deep belly work there. Hip hinge back, turn on the backs of your legs. So you're using your calves and your hamstrings to pull your pelvis and your heels toward each other. And then tuck your tailbone under as you push up. Let's just do that one more time. And tuck your tailbone under. And then come to neutral. Now hips towards your heels, and we'll do our shoulder circles on the other side. Root down through that right arm, lift your left arm up. So keep your spine and your rib cage neutral and facing the same way. So you're not going to open up to circle your arm. You're just going to do this through your shoulder and just play with your own range of motion as you circle it around and back. Lead with your thumb till you can't anymore, and then you can rotate and lead with your pinky. So do it a few times, and then we can add the elbow bend. Reach forward, bend your elbow and tap between your shoulder blades, lengthen out, and then internally rotate that shoulder, reach back, bend your elbow back, your hand to your lower back. Just really moving with control and awareness. Release that left arm, and then you can thread it underneath your right armpit. Lift your hips up off your heels. Find your twisted child. You can reach those right fingertips long and then over to the right. And then at the same time, kind of draw your right hip crease back. And breathe. And take your left hand, your right hand, slide it in front of your face. Use your arm strength to come back up. And lift your left leg behind you. We've got our hip cars, our hip circles. So bend your knee and then bring your knee straight out to the side. And then towards your armpit into the center. And then heel back. Knee out to the side. Toward your armpit into the center. Heel back. One more in that direction. And you can always, stack your block next to that standing leg. So you're not leaning over to knock it. And then switch. So knee into your chest, armpit out to the side, heel to ceiling. And notice how this is coming, right, from that deep core. Last time. And then step your left foot outside your left hand. You can come onto fingertips, onto blocks, and just wiggle around here. Hands are inside of that left foot. You can stir your hips in circles. And bend and straighten that leg. Just kind of get acquainted with your hips in a fluid and friendly way. And then we'll tuck those back toes and just play with straightening the front leg and then bending the front leg and straightening the back leg. And just go back and forth there. And if you want to, you can even keep that back knee hovering when you bend it. But you're just moving mindfully and slowly with control. Your hands are up as high as they need to be to really support your lower back, so you're not overstraining there. Next time your front knee bends, you can ground your back heel, ground that right heel, and then come on up for warrior two. Adjust your feet as you need to, and just see that your pelvis can move. And just let it sway from side to side. And let your front knee kind of track toward the pinky edge of your left foot, but keep grounded through your left big toe ball mound. There. And then you can just pause in your warrior two and breathe. And just take one more breath there. I guess we didn't bend and straighten this time. So let's just do that a couple of times. Straighten that leg. And then really feel like you're turning on the whole back of your left leg to bend your knee and pull your heel towards your bum. And just do that a couple of times. So you're using that muscular strength and not just dumping into it. You're pulling that heel back. And then we'll take our right leg, just slide it forward and find your wide mountain pose stance. And then just start swaying side to side. Turn your toes out. And you can just sway and shift your heels, and your toes don't even have to stay totally on the floor. As you sway from side to side and coming down into a squat, but feel the integrity through your spine and initiating your movement from your core. We'll just sway down, use your hands if you need to. Come down as low as your body wants you to, and you can pause there. Use your hands, your blocks, as much, whatever you need to get your bum to the floor. Float your legs, find your boat. And then we'll lengthen legs, reach out. And just hover shoulder blades and heels up off the floor. And then lower everything down. Reach your arms high. Bend your knees toward the ceiling, slide your heels in, sweep your arms by your hips. And then knees wide, arms like a snow angel out to the sides. So you take those knees wide and then lengthen your legs. So we're just back to our little elementary backstroke. Do this direction a few times. And then you can switch and add your little bridge. So knees out as you bring your heels towards your bum. Plant your feet, lift your hips. And then push your heels away. So reach your arms overhead. Let's do one more of those. And then find your dead bug. Roll to your right. Roll to your left. And then you can lengthen that left leg. Push your way up. And just find your side bend. We'll just go one time to the right. And then come back up with that left leg long. And then plant your hands behind you. Maybe this time you keep your left leg long and just your right knee bent. Draw your shoulder blades together and lift up into a reverse plank. And just do this a few times. You could switch legs. You could play doing it with 2 straight legs. Right, but we're initiating this movement from the center. Take one more, reverse table or half reverse plank or full reverse plank. And then come back onto your hands and knees. Walk your hands back towards your heels and come up so that you're in a standing kneel. And we'll play with that hip hinge from here. So remember how we were doing that on our hands and knees. You're going to hinge right at your hip crease and bring your hips towards your heels. Now, I don't want you to go very far this first time. And then you'll tuck your tailbone underneath you and come back upright. Okay, so you're really using that low belly and core. But another thing this does is, right, we've got some superficial quad muscles, and then we've got our vastus muscles that are closest to the bone, and often those get adhered to each other, right, and they don't move independently. So this movement where we're hinging at our hips and then tucking your pelvis under to come back upright, it's going to use your quads a lot, but it's going to get those different layers sliding against each other and kind of free them up. So you don't have to get your hips very far towards your heels, and then tuck your tailbone under and ripple yourself up. So hinging and then really tucking your tailbone. So just do that a few times, and if it feels easy, you can bring your hips closer to your heels in your hinge before you tuck your tailbone and come up. And you might feel it more in your quads the further toward your heels you get, but you want to make sure it feels good in your knees too. Let's do one more. And then just balance on your standing kneel. Really push down into that your left shin, and free your left shin out and bring it in front of you. And then just step your foot. And we'll just play with balance. So you can come onto your toes and just hover and intentionally set your foot down. Push down into that shin. You can hover your foot and find a place to intentionally, purposely set your foot down. Right, you're moving here, finding that balance from your core. And see if you can hover for a while before you put that foot down intentionally and on purpose. And then we'll set ourselves up for a comfortable low lunge. So take that right foot, ground it down. And this time we'll stay upright and just kind of move here, working on bending and straightening that front knee. Your back toes can be tucked or untucked. I'm going to tuck, and then we can start to get a little bit fancier. So like we did with our hands down earlier, you can do it with your hands on your hips. As you bend that front knee, you can lift and straighten that back knee, and then you can bend your back knee. And maybe do this with that back knee hovering. And feel that strength in your legs, but feel really stable through your core. And you play with bending and straightening, alternating these. Now, notice your front foot really ground down into your big toe ball mound. You can even kind of push your tongue into the roof of your mouth to really turn on that deep core line. And you can see if that makes you feel more stable. Next time your front knee's bent, just ground your back heel. And find your warrior two. Move your pelvis. And then you can open your arms. Settle in there for a breath. And then reverse your warrior. Reach up and back. That right arm, and then find a side angle pose. Maybe right forearm on right thigh, or grab inside that right ankle. Really lengthen from your left heel out through those left fingertips. And then bring your left hand to your left hip. Ground down into your right heel. We'll just slide your left heel in, and then maybe hover it into kind of a baby half moon. Just float. Find your balance. And then we'll step wide as your mat, just up at top, and swing your hips. We'll make our way down to the floor again through your squat. Just take your time, right, to just move fluidly through your hips. Until you make your way all the way down, feet to the floor. Float into your boat. Maybe lengthen your legs. And then we'll hover, hover, hover until you come all the way to the floor. And we're back to the beginning again. Reach your arms long. Just do two of your little elementary back strokes here. Knees toward the ceiling as you slide your heels in. Hands sweep by your hips. Knees go wide, and you snow angel out and up. Feel everything draw to the center as you sweep your arms down and your knees in. Just really feel that hollowing out of your belly. And then sweep long. And then you can switch directions. Knees go wide as you bring your heels towards your bum, and then plant your feet and lift into your bridge. And then you push those heels away. And just do one more like that, or however many. Sure you're going at your own pace. That's good. After your hips come down, find your little dead bug. Rolls from side to side. And just let yourself roll around. And you can play with that straight right leg and find your side bend. And this time, with that straight right leg, you can find your side bend. Then plant your hands behind you. Lift that left knee up toward the ceiling. And then you can lift your hips here. And just kind of keep pivoting yourself so you come parallel with the edge of your mat. And keep one leg long. You can have both knees bent. You can try with both legs straight. Just do one more. Reverse plank or table. And then come over onto your hands and knees. Walk your hands back towards your knees. Come to your standing kneel, and we'll try that again with that hip hinge, that quad flossing. And it's deep belly work also. So hips back, you're hinging. So your spine is straight, and then you tuck your tailbone under to ripple your way back up. Hip hinge, and you don't even have to come very far back. And you'll feel it in your belly. And you can play with getting your hips closer to your heels. And kind of flossing through those layers in your quads and over your hip flexors. Let's just do that one more time. And then ground down into your right shin Just float your left shin up, bring your knee forward. Find your hover, and then intentionally step your foot down. And then you can hover that foot again. And find a place to intentionally set your foot down. And change places. Let your core, right, work to reflexively stabilize you as you throw yourself off balance by moving your leg around. And then we'll step into that comfortable lunge. You can have your hands at your hips and just move here. Bending and straightening that front knee. And you can tuck your back toes. And when that front knee's bent, you can hover that back knee and lift it up off the floor. And then maybe lower it down to straighten your front leg. Or you can try to keep that back knee hovering as you bend and straighten. It's another quad work. And I'm feeling it this time. I'm a little shaky and elbowy. So just move here, right? Slower is stronger. You want to really find that engagement where you can move in a fluid and controlled way. Next time your front knee's bent, and ground your back heel. Find your warrior two. And open yourself up and out. How are we doing on time? Inhale. And reverse that warrior. Exhale into a side angle pose. Maybe forearm to thigh. Right arm alongside your ear. Or you can reach for that inner ankle. And then find kind of a spiral from pushing into your left big toe and then drawing your left glute underneath you. And opening, you can push your left upper arm into your knee. Open through your heart and spine. And then right hand to your hip. We'll find that hovering half moon. So just let your left hand hover. Slide your right foot in. And then maybe float it up. The inner edge of that right foot is parallel with the floor. And then as you're ready, with control, swing that right leg forward. And find your wide stance. And just work your way into your squat. All the way down. And then you can pause there. Lengthen through your spine, wherever you're at, right? So think of tracking your knees over your pinky toes. Push down into your big toes. Engage through your glutes. Lengthen up through the crown of your head. And take one more breath here. And then you can bring your hands to the floor, straighten both legs, parallel your feet, and just let yourself hang in a really nurturing forward fold so you can soften your knees as much as you need to and maybe even sway a little from side to side. And then we'll plant our hands and just step back into a downward facing dog. Our first and only downward facing dog of this whole practice. Just let yourself feel really long from your pinky fingernail up through your outer armpits. Lengthen up through your hip creases. And then bring your knees down. We'll find a back bend here. So walk your hands towards your knees. Come to your standing kneel. You can tuck your toes. You can have your hands in your back pockets. Actually, let's all do this. Reach your arms high. And remember, as we were pulling our hands down when we were on our backs, right? You feel that engagement through your tummy. I want you to pull an imaginary bar down behind your head, but still feel that engagement through your front. And then engage between your shoulder blades on your back. Now just playing